Welcome to Plus Talk on Plus Life, where we are all about turning positive into a plus. My guest today is in the UK. His name is Luke Kelly, and he kind of went viral not that long ago after watching the hit HBO Max series, It's a Sin. It sparked something in him and inspired him to live his truth. So, Luke Kelly, welcome to Plus Talk. Nice to see you, sir.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is interesting. It's great to have you on the show because I feel like in a way we have a very similar story. We didn't really have much of an intention to talk about our HIV status. When I disclosed publicly, I'd been HIV positive for 10 years and sort of doing my thing like you. Mm-hmm. And then one day we just sort of decided to randomly share it. So tell me a bit about what inspired you to speak your truth out loud, and what's the reaction been like?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm not really sure about how you were, but it had been 10 years, so I kind of just sort of it become something that I'd accepted, and it was just a way of life, really. And I kind of thought I'd fully accepted it. So when I watched It's a Sin, I was very much like, okay, it's going to be a tearjerker, but I'm going to be able to handle it. And actually, when I watched it, it was just incredibly emotional, and it stirred up a lot of feelings for me, which was like it kind of really shook me, and I kind of then had to analyze that reaction. And just after, like thinking, analyzing it, I actually sort of thought, oh, there's something not right there. Maybe I haven't dealt with some of these emotions that have been with me for 10 years. And then I basically decided to do like a little conversation with my friend Connor. We did like an Instagram live, and it was just a case of like, okay, let's unpack that. And I felt like coming out about it in a public setting would be a good thing for my process. And and then we did it, and it was very nerve-wracking. It was a big deal. It shouldn't have been a big deal, but it was a big deal. It felt like I was coming out again. And but then instantly it was like an instant feedback of love and positivity. It went kind of viral on the internet and had so many hundreds of messages of people who were positive, people who weren't positive, who just kind of resonated with my story. And we did like a 45-minute video, and it's quite amazing that so many people watched it and watched the whole thing.
Yeah, well, and I want to get on to how people have reacted in a minute, but were you doing Instagram live kind of things pre this, or was this just something you said to your mate, hey, let's jump on and have a chat, I want to talk about it?
Yeah, no, it was. I've never done one in my life before. So he, my friend Connor, he knew my status, and he mentioned it to me, the show, and he said, "Oh, how did you find it?" And I said, "Oh, well, it was quite triggering." And he said, "Oh, yeah, I can imagine." And he's like, "Do you want to do an Instagram live?" And I just was like, "Do you know what? Like, yes, I think that is something that I think that would be good for my process, and I think that if I can help other people in doing so, then great, and like it's
sorry no, I was going to say, it was interesting that you said it shouldn't be a big deal. When I disclosed publicly, my boss the next day was on the phone with me, and she said, this shouldn't be a news story, this shouldn't be a big deal, but it is. And that was 3 years ago. Does it shock you that in 2021 this is still a big deal?
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't shock me because I think subconsciously had been still living with the shame and the secrecy of it. But yeah, realizing after watching It's a Sin, there's that. It's not just. It wasn't just the triggering moment when I was witnessing like one of the guys die and in front of his parents, which was a really triggering moment for me, because that's what I'd relived when I was 21, when I was diagnosed. That's the thing that I imagined, and when I saw it on screen, that was the thing that hit me hard. But it wasn't just that moment; it was another moment in the show at the end where the character called Jill, she does a speech about shame and gay shame, and how HIV is kind of it's almost like the just reward that gay people who grow up in a homophobic world and live their whole life in shame, and then they finally get HIV, and that's kind of like their it's almost like they deserved it. And that is something that I kind of had experienced, to be honest. And it was the reason why I was keeping it a secret, even 10 years after I was diagnosed, and I thought that I was okay with it. So yeah, actually unpacking all of that information and thinking, oh yeah, it's 2021, I'm fine, it's been 10 years. Well, actually, no, why am I keeping it a secret? And I think that really does boil down to this, down to the stigma and the shame. But then if you take that a layer further, it's down to like homophobia, which still exists. And yeah, so when I came out with HIV, people it's still a shocking thing. And yeah, it shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think, again, I see and sense the similarities between what you've gone through and what I went through, and I think what a lot of people go through. Like you, for 10 years, I was like, oh yeah, I've dealt with it. I would make stupid jokes. So I would go, oh, you don't want to date me, I'm damaged goods, kind of thing. And I thought I was being funny. And it wasn't until I publicly spoke about it that, to your point, the internalized stigma that I didn't even realize I had, that was buried somewhere deep down in my subconscious. And I'm hearing sort of the same thing from you, this internalized stigma.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's awful, really. And I just think actually what having come out about it is being the most cathartic and freeing experience for me, because once you kind of release yourself of that secret, you kind of wear it as a badge of honor almost. And now I've had so many amazing conversations with people all over the world, and like conversations like I'm having with you right now, which just feels like finally I have nothing to hide. Like I'm more authentic. I'm living me authentically as me, which is amazing, because you think as a gay person, you kind of live in the shame and stigma and secrecy of being gay, and then finally you come out. And in my case, within the same year as I kind of started to tell people, I was diagnosed with HIV. So I kind of went back in the closet, and I lived again in this other closet for 10 years. And yeah, so it's nice that I am able to do that, but I understand that I'm privileged to be able to do that. And there is a lot of people who still are not able to have that, to find that voice.
Well, so now that you've found this freedom within yourself and this sort of acceptance, and you mentioned you really good point there. You realize the position of privilege that you're in, because you're right. There are so many people, the majority of people, I think, feel that they can't do what you've done or what I've done or what others do. So now that you've sort of found this inner voice and this sort of regain of confidence, I guess, what do you plan to do with all of this? Or do you plan to, like, you've got it out there, that's it, and life goes on, and that's how it works?
Yeah. Well, I think obviously I never intended for any of the attention that I got. I genuinely thought for me it was like it certainly was like a aha moment when I watched It to Sin. I was like, I feel like I need to actually tell people about this in a public way. And so I was sort of selfishly doing it for my process, but as a result of that, a lot of people found that to be, it was educational, that video. And
yeah, no, and listen, I get it, because it all sort of happens, and like I didn't plan for it. I didn't think anyone would really give a quite frankly. I thought friends on social media would see it. I had no idea that it would go viral and that it would, but thank God, because it's led me to where I am today and Plus Life and getting to meet people like you. So, sorry.
And that now it's come back to me, because I think that is essentially now the kind of spotlight has been shone on me. I'm very happy to continue that conversation, and, in any capacity really. So even if that is just, if that is just with friends, on a one-to-one, or whether that's again on Instagram or for example with yourself, then I'm really happy, because I know that just all it needs is people to be talking, and seeing people like yourself and me who are quite happily healthy and living with HIV is everything that would help end the stigma, really.
Yeah, well, and messaging like U equals U. What did you know? Did you know much about U equals U? When did that come into your orbit?
Well, when I was diagnosed in 2011, so that wasn't
It wasn't around. Yeah, it wasn't really around.
No.
They didn't make it sort of scientifically official until 2018.
Yeah, that's right. So even when I was diagnosed, medication, because U equals U wasn't a thing, they didn't even advise that you go on medication straight away, because the kind of I feel like the advances in the medication hadn't really caught up with the advice that the doctors would give. So the doctors were still giving advice as if the medication was still a little bit more primitive, like back in its primitive stages. So they were like, no, as long as you can be strong and
as long as your CD4 count is up. I had the same thing. The UK doctors were saying to me, "Oh, you don't need to start meds until your CD4 and viral loads get to a certain level." Then when I moved here to the United States, I had a horrible experience with a doctor at a very well-regarded clinic here in Los Angeles for LGBTQ plus people, in front of a room full of people, yell at me and tell me I was playing Russian roulette with my life, and how dare I be so selfish to not be on meds. So
yeah, I know. It's just like it's like a completely different perspective. But when you've only been fed one perspective, and especially as a 21-year-old who knew nothing about this, and I mean that's another conversation. But I was very ignorant to everything. And when you have a doctor, a professional telling you, no, it's good, try and keep it off the medication as long as you can, then suddenly that becomes your goal.
Right.
Like, I can fight this as long as I can.
I'm going to stop drinking and stop partying. That lasted about 2 weeks for me. Luke, thank you so much for your time. I could speak to him for hours, but unfortunately, we don't have the time. That is it for today's episode of Plus Talk. If you want to watch it again or find a little bit more out about Luke, go to our website, pluslifemedia.com, and remember to follow us across all social media platforms. We are at Plus Life Media. Until next time, wash your hands, stay safe. We'll see you soon.